aren't we? Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, VR for Good panel.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. I know it's quite a sunny day out there, but we have a great panel for you today. It's going to be like quite an informal, sort of system. So if you have any questions throughout, just raise your hand and we'll get on it. Just a bit more about me. My name is Erfaan. I'm a content creator at Surround Vision. We're a VR production company. We focus on virtual reality documentaries. We have a great panel for you today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves though. Alex, if you want to take the lead.
Sure. Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Alex. I work for the United Nations. I'm the public campaign manager for a big environmental project in Africa called the Great Green Wall, which is a project which has the quite epic ambition of growing a wall of trees and plants from one side of Africa to the other. In the process, changing millions of people's lives living on the front line of climate change. I'm also the executive producer of the VR film about the Great Green Wall called Growing a World Wonder, which I had the enormous fortune of working on with Erfaan from Surround Vision. Maybe just to start, just to give you an overview of what the Great Green Wall is all about and what our VR experience is about. So the Great Green Wall is an initiative that was launched a decade ago by 12 different African nations to deal with the major challenges in a region called the Sahel, which borders the southern edge of the Sahara Desert. And in this region of the world, over the last 30 years, climate change has had an enormous impact on people's livelihoods, particularly with the degradation of their land resources, which has meant that vast swathes of land have become completely unusable and unproductive, and it's had huge implications on people's food security. It's also had huge implications in terms of some of the big things that you see in the news right now, including the migration crisis in Europe. 1/4 of all migrants coming to Europe actually come from rural areas, degraded areas of Africa. So there are big knock-on effects of land degradation and climate change in that region of the world. So about 10 years ago, 12 African nations, as I say, came together and came up with this epic solution, which was called the Great Green Wall, which was to essentially restore these lands, make them productive again, and create this epic structure from one side of Africa to the other that, once complete, will be the world's largest living structure, 8,000 kilometers long, and will be visible from space. So we decided to tell this epic story through a VR experience called the Growing a World Wonder. And the story is told through the eyes of an 8-year-old girl called Binta, who is implementing the project in Senegal, one section of the wall, with her community, and the wall is bringing enormous changes to their community's lives. So I urge you to go and see it. I think it's on the Surround Vision's stand in the main expo area. So that's basically our film.
Awesome.
So I'm Amy. I work for Plan International UK in their brand and marketing team. We are a children's rights charity with a specific focus on girls' rights. Our big campaign is called the Because I'm a Girl campaign, which is one of the biggest girls' rights campaign in the world. And as part of that campaign, we work with Surround Vision and Mary, who directed the film, to produce Mammy's Dream, which is a VR film, and it's all about 22-year-old Mammy. So as part of the Because I'm a Girl campaign, we try and end FGM, child marriage, and ensure girls get the education that they deserve. And the film Mammy's Dream is all about this one girl called Mammy, who's 22, who refused FGM, was ostracised by her family, but was determined to carry on studying at school. And she has a young girl, and later on in her life, the plan helps her onto a learning assistant program that we fund in Sierra Leone, and that allows young women within the community to become role models and teach at school. And it also means that they can go on to help girls in their school and be positive role models. For example, one of the girls that features in the film, her mother was going to take her out of school because she'd started her period and therefore thought that she was old enough to get married. And Mammy was able to speak to her parents and stop her parents from taking her out of school. So not only does the programme provide a great platform and a great exposure for Mammy, but it also provides a great great thing for girls in the school too.
So I'm Mary Matheson and I'm a filmmaker, and as you've heard I worked on Miami's Dream with Plan International. So I have spent the last 15 years making films for international development charities, for campaigning or fundraising or media work, and you know, as part of that we sort of try out new techniques, obviously to raise more money or raise more awareness. And so over the years we've used animations, and so VR was something that Plan decided to try out last year. So I directed it and worked with Surround Vision. You're seeing the common denominator here. And so yeah, that was the first VR film that I made, and it was just a really, really exciting thing to work on, because it opened a whole new world in terms of a whole language. You know, communicating with audiences here in the UK about the lives of the people that Plan International, let's say, work for. Yeah, hopefully I'll make some more VR films.
Hi, I'm Jade Williams. I'm a producer at Apache. We're an AR and VR software developer. We've been in the tech space for about 26 years, but of course more recently moving on to AR, VR and apps, and we collaborated on the Great Green Wall project where we built the back-end system for the app to be able to deliver this to lots of lovely people.
Awesome. So as you can see, we have a couple of organizations that have used VR to promote social change, and a couple of creators, which is great. So just to start with, why VR? If you want to take the lead.
Sure. Our original motivation for creating a virtual reality experience was actually specifically for fundraising purposes. We conceived of doing a VR experience in the lead up to a major climate change conference that was taking place in Paris in December 2015. And our target audience at that event was global decision makers and heads of big international development banks. And many of those people may have had some idea about the Great Green Wall, but certainly didn't know about it in depth, and certainly had never visited the Great Green Wall. And so we thought that, what better way really to tell the story of this emerging new world wonder than to actually create an experience which brings what's happening on the ground in on the edge of the Sahara Desert to the heart of the conference. And so that was the kind of the motivation for creating a VR experience in the first place, to actually allow those global decision makers to be confronted with the experiences of those people implementing this project, and to also see, to immerse them in that world, to put them in the shoes of this 8-year-old girl called Binta, who was growing with her community and with millions of other people across Africa, the Great Green Wall project, to put them on the front line essentially of climate change, to experience what that 8-year-old girl experiences on a daily basis. So I think that was one of the main kind of motivations behind VR. I think the second one was actually, at the time we developed the film, VR was very much kind of an emerging technology. It wasn't commercially available in December 2015. So I think that for us, it was also about creating kind of a wow factor, a surprise factor at the conference, to put a kind of a VR stand in the middle of this conference. At that time, no one really had seen VR. And to see, lots of people kind of immersed in this strange world with these strange-looking headsets, created a bit of a kind of a storm. Got lots of kind of media headlines and so on and so forth. So that was kind of the second motivation for it, was really to kind of to create a bit of a kind of a provocative kind of stunt in a way. Initially, that was the thinking. I think thirdly, it would be the kind of the storytelling. That VR allows you to create, to create really simple, epic, beautiful experiences that immerse people in a new reality. It's something that we thought, through filmmaking, traditional filmmaking models, in many ways they of course they still have impact in terms of connecting people to issues, but VR was such a kind of a novel experience that I think it was something that really caught people's imagination, really caught people's attention at that conference. And so that would really be some of our kind of reasoning initially for doing VR.
Awesome. Amy, same question. Why VR?
I think for us it was definitely that immersive impact that VR has. So it's the only way that we can transport our supporters into a girl's life and really understand that the work we're doing on the ground. So the film Mammy's Dream really does transport you into this community in Sierra Leone, and you can really understand the difficult challenges that these girls are facing, whether it's FGM, child marriage, or a lack of access to education. It's allowing you to walk kind of in Mammy's shoes and understanding the real challenges that she's faced, and no other tool that as a charity we've been able to use. We don't have any other kind of immersive asset that we can use. While we've made great films, this is the only way we can put someone right in the centre of that community and really understand that the great work that we're doing on the ground. And it's around people understanding that actually, you know, they can help us by signing up to our campaign, by fundraising for us. You know, this is the impact that they can make. And it's also been a great tool to say thank you to people that have already supported plans, so we can show them the film and we can see exactly, you know, this is how you are helping us and this is the change that we are making. So it's definitely that kind of immersive impact that no other marketing channel offers. I also think we're in a time where Plan is competing against other children's rights charities, and that girls' rights space is really kind of is crowded in terms of the amount of organisations working in girls' rights, and we really want to stand out from the crowd, and we want people to know us for the experts on girls' rights and know us for the great work that we're doing. And it's just another draw when we go to events. Having VR in the room, it really draws people in. It's something new, it's a great experience. A lot of the people that we show it to are seeing VR for the first time, and as soon as they watch it, they want to know how they can help. So I think from that point of view, from a charity aspect, it's really great.
Cool. I mean, you both touched on the wow factor sort of thing. Obviously, VR is really new, as we all know. But so, like, what were some of the initial reactions that you got from your experiences of the just general people watching it? Did you think it was different to the traditional films that you've produced in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we've always had a really positive reaction. I don't think I've had a negative reaction. I think people are just amazed to all of a sudden be immersed in this 360 world, and there's so many great shots that we did. I think one of the most talked about ones is when Mammy stood on a bridge and you look down and you can only see water, and I think people haven't experienced that kind of content before, maybe in terms of how they're kind of experiencing that content, and all the reactions that we've had have been really, really positive, and they want to know how it was made, they want to know more about Mammy, they want to know how they can help. So yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with what you said. I mean, I think also, I mean, it certainly struck me that lots of people have been very emotional when they've watched the film. I mean, there's been many people that, you know, have cried or been, you know, extremely kind of enthused by the kind of the presence that they feel of actually being close to the community and actually feeling that they exist in their world. I think is an incredibly powerful tool, and I don't think it's a tool that, you know, that is replicated anywhere else. So I think that it really is a combination of emotion, excitement, astonishment, and, you know, there's certainly, yeah, I mean, there's certain moments in our film, particularly when the film pans out and you see the kind of a CGI shot of the globe, and you see the Great Green Wall kind of extending across the entire width of the continent, and it's one which really kind of generates a real kind of sense of, you know, wow and astonishment. So it's yeah, it's been generally, I would say, very much a very positive kind of reaction so far.
Awesome.
I think also when Plan first showed Mammy's Dream, they showed it at a gala dinner. So it was a fundraising dinner with 200 people, and so they got 200 people all watching the film at the same time. And that was quite an amazing thing.
Yeah, no, that was incredible. The room literally just fell silent for about 8 minutes.
Yeah.
While everyone was immersed in this community in Sierra Leone, and it was really, really quite special.
And it's quite interesting because often VR experiences, people sort of criticise them for being sort of quite solitary, or you're there and you're in your zone,
Yeah.
whereas actually on this occasion, you had 200 people all doing it at the same time. So then when they took the headsets off, they were able to actually talk to each other about it. we were there, the people that had made it were there, so they were able to talk to us about it as well, and they were, so I think that was pretty special, doing it with such a massive group of people.
Awesome. I mean, just moving on. Do you guys, as the producers, do you feel like VR gives you any additional tool compared to like traditional mediums of storytelling to communicate with your audiences?
Yeah, I mean, definitely as a filmmaker, it's if you're making a flat screen film, you always think that it's like you allow people to look through the window into the world, let's say of Sierra Leone, whereas if you're showing a VR film, people can actually step into that world, and so that's a really major difference for us in terms of making films where you're trying to sort of create an emotional connection between the people in the film and the people here. To be able to do that is really extraordinary. And for me as a filmmaker, it's really exciting. It feels like it's this whole new language and world that that we've yet to discover. It is very different to filming a regular film. You've got to sort of set your cameras up and then run away and hide and sort of hope for the best. So as a director, usually what you're doing is you're trying to lead people through a story, whereas in a way you kind of have to slightly leave it to what chance or so it's a kind of new language that we're really learning, which is kind of exciting.
And I think I just wanted to pick up on one moment in terms of special moments. I think probably and you'll probably agree with this in terms of when we were out there filming, I think a really special moment was, so we didn't want to just go in and film it and then kind of really wanted to explain what we were doing when we showed the children the VR headsets. And I remember when we kind of put the headsets on them and we showed them the films just so they could understand what we were trying to achieve. And I think that was probably one of the most special moments, just seeing their reaction. And when Mammy was able to, I think we showed her your film that's at the top of Monument maybe, and I just remember seeing her reaction and it just being one of the best things ever.
Awesome. Jade, so these guys have talked quite a bit about 360 videos. There's obviously VR is so much more than 360 videos. Can you elaborate more on that?
Oh yes, of course. There's quite a nice wide spectrum of tech. You've got this 360 film, you've got VR, virtual reality, or AR, augmented reality, and they all, I guess, have their own benefits. 360 film and VR, they tend to be quite immersive, which is really quite nice. We now have a world where there's quite a lot of media clutter, so we're all quite jaded by radio, poster adverts, so having something that perhaps extends the story, like 360 film, or using VR, which is quite immersive and really drops the person in the center of the action, it's definitely quite a brilliant tool to get rid of some of that media clutter. AR, which is what we sort of really started on, which is our specialty at Apache. It's really quite nice for getting engagement because it's just a really nice, interesting way to get people interacting with something in the environment outside of their homes in a way that hasn't previously been done.
Awesome. At this stage, does anyone have any questions?
Is the panel that's directed up into the panel? I'm used to it for years in India. I'm usually a PhD in the year with regards to the application of MRI in the development centre. But from the other side, I mean, predominantly in the past few years, the Plaza, etc., the lens has been looking at the development centre from the outside. So it's been fundraising, it's been creating awareness. And it seems that this has been the awareness time here. But I think you mentioned that in the Mali situation, apart from creating awareness, they also educated the parents as to the value of education, the Mali and how to work with African American community. Was that something that was planned? Were you surprised by that?
In terms of Mammy speaking to her.
In terms of Mammy's family, in terms of being, sorry to in terms of it being a tool
Yeah.
For the community to be able to say, this is the value of.
So the project is set up so that the teaching assistants who are in the schools have a positive impact on the girls and the boys that they teach. So it's not just about the teaching assistant themselves, it's also the wider school and the wider community, the impact that they're having on that school and on those children, and ensuring that they are staying in education. And when we first arrived in Sierra Leone, we spoke to girls, and we went through all of their story, didn't we? And we kind of spoke from their childhood up until their current situation in terms of teaching and the effects that they were having. And it was through those kind of discussions that we discovered certain aspects of the story.
But you kind of hope for it, obviously.
Yeah.
But you don't know it's going to happen until you get there. And I think what was really amazing was that it was a message that Plan really wanted to get into the film, which was simply that it's not just about giving these girls a college education to be teachers. It's also about the sort of the effect that it'll have on younger girls, so that they'll be mentors for them. So when we got there, and originally we said, "Oh, do you think? Give us any examples?" And she was like, "No, I can't really think of any." And then we said, "Well, what about, are there any girls who might have dropped out of school because you think they were going to be married off?" And she said, "Oh, well, there was this one girl whose parents wanted to get her married, but I went and spoke to the parents." And so she then gave us this example. So you kind of hope for it, but you've got, we didn't know at all until we got there.
So is this, so is the film actually now going around communities in Sierra Leone?
No, so the film is very much kind of a UK focus in terms of it's for a UK audience to help us recruit campaigners, to help us fundraise for Plan, so that we can then use that support to help the communities in Sierra Leone. But it's not being used. I mean, we would.
Would there be no consideration that you say that clearly, the family or the parents saw value in the education she was having? Why would you use that to show to other communities?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
In terms of distribution of 360 film, it's quite a finite number of platforms. So you've got the Google Cardboard, you've got Samsung Gear VR or Google Daydream, whatever your camp is. You've perhaps got YouTube or Facebook as well, which now support 360 film. So those distribution methods aren't necessarily the easiest distribution methods that are going to appear in developing countries, which I guess is a natural barrier for that format. So that will have some part in rolling that out to developing countries. Once, I guess, that becomes more accessible in terms of cost, then that will become a lot easier.
I think also the way that these organisations work is that this is, this particular project was funded by Plan UK, and so Plan Sierra Leone will have their own ways of, raising awareness. And if they wanted to, they could easily use this, but it's not really within their, it's not up to Plan UK what Plan Sierra Leone does. But I'm sure that the cost would be an issue. But it's a very good idea and a good point.
Yeah, maybe just to say a couple of words about that as well from our side. I mean, actually, I fully agree with what the panel said, but when we first created Growing a World Wonder, again, it was very much for kind of Western audiences, it was very much for fundraising purposes, but we are now looking actually at seeing how we can bring this experience to the communities along the Great Green Wall, because the film was shot in Senegal, which is one of 12 countries that are implementing the Great Green Wall project. And we would like to, we're exploring it at the moment, it's very early stages, but we're looking at creating a Google Expeditions experience, which will bring it into schools, local primary schools across the Great Green Wall region. So that would also give those communities a sense that they're part of a bigger story than just their own individual project, which is restoring their lands and planting trees in their own area, but also create a sense that they're part of a big movement which is sweeping across the African continent, which I think would be very powerful in from a storytelling perspective, but also from a perspective of giving an incentive to these communities to actually really create this, new wonder of the world, as we're calling it. So that's something that we're looking into at the moment.
Amazing. Jade, you touched upon the limitations of distributing 360. Is there any other limitations at this early stages that you see?
In the West, not so much. I mean, in the UK, about 2/3 of people have a smartphone in their pocket, and then there's 2/3 more of those who would prefer to use those smartphones to go onto the internet. So we're quite lucky in that respect that we have a computer in our pocket which we can walk around with. We can view videos at any point in time, which is really quite useful. Of course, as the gentleman in the audience mentioned earlier, that bringing this into developing countries, that's where the sort of challenges and limitations are going to come. From a tech perspective, you do have several different platforms for 360 video, but perhaps you'll need to sort of focus on your demographic for sharing those. So whether it's app versus YouTube or Facebook, that's definitely going to steer what kind of delivery you're going to be using for any of these 360 films.
Awesome. And Mary, as a storyteller, were you at any point frustrated, like, there's some tools that you have in film that you didn't have maybe in VR?
I mean, yeah, being able to see what you're filming is pretty difficult. So, that is really hard, and it's really difficult to get used to. We basically use 6 GoPros, and so we were able to view one of the cameras, but that's quite a hard thing to sort of stick your rig there and then go and hide for a bit and hope for the best, really. I mean, a lot of it is that. So I guess, doing a rough stitch in the evening, I would say, was absolutely vital to make sure that you've got your shots, that one of the cameras isn't dead, because the batteries go very quickly in heat. So sort of technically, I think as well, you've got to be really, really organised. And just to ensure that your workflow is much more organised than it needs to be if you're just shooting a regular film.
Awesome. We were talking earlier with you. I mean, both Going to World Wonder and Mami's Dream are obviously about much bigger issues than just Mami or Binta and Musa. But how did the experience affect the active participants in the experience? If you wanna.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the first thing to say, obviously, we developed the film for fundraising purposes, and amazingly enough, I mean, as part of a broader lobbying process at the Global Climate Summit in Paris, where the film was shown to global decision makers and heads of international development banks, the film was part and parcel of a process which led to $4 billion of investment into the Great Green Wall project over a period of the next 5 years. So from a fundraising perspective, it had an enormous impact. I think maybe perhaps a little bit more anecdotally, I mean, in terms of the characters and the people actually in the film, Binta, who's the 8-year-old girl, who's the main protagonist of Growing a Wild Wonder, and her grandfather Musa, who you see interacting at various points throughout the film. They were both actually invited by the Minister of Environment from Senegal to come and speak at a major conference in Dakar, which was attended by ministers from across Africa and development agencies from all over the world, where they had the opportunity to speak about the Great Green Wall project and to raise global awareness about it. I think maybe the final thing to say would also be the kind of the broader visibility that has come out of this VR experience. It led to showing the VR experience at the Climate Summit in Paris, led to the filmmaker Fernando Merieles of City of Gods and the Constant Gardener actually requesting it to be shown at the Rio Olympics opening ceremony, which obviously was an amazing honour, which was really exciting. So yeah, that's probably the main.
Awesome. Mami?
Yeah. I guess it's important to say that Mami's Dream, it's her story, it's her words, and she narrates it all. And we were from the beginning, we definitely wanted it to be all kind of from her. Everything was her, but unfortunately, Mami's story and it kind of does reflect a lot of the girls that we spoke to. But no, Mami was really, she really wanted to be involved in the film. She wanted to tell her story. She almost kind of thanked us for telling her story, and we had to tell her, you know, thank you for sharing it with us and letting us share it with the world. And you know, only by sharing her story and understanding the challenges that she faces in her community, and also girls like her are facing, by sharing those with the UK public, it's then we can then go on to help kind of gain support so that she can, her life can carry on kind of on the learning system program and other girls like her. So I think she was really aware of the fact that, you know, that program needed support from people outside Sierra Leone, and being able to share her story outside Sierra Leone meant that we could then keep that going.
Yeah, and I think also just us even being there and filming with her.
Yeah.
I mean, not only sort of going through the whole experience of actually, you know, working on the script together so that it was her story and her words, but also just filming within the community and her walking through the community actually meant a lot to her, because even until that moment, there were still people who rejected her and thought that, you know, and they isolated her. Whereas she felt like there was some sort of acceptance of her once they saw that she was doing this film, you know, that she must have some story to tell, and that therefore she, you know, she did have some importance. So she said even participating in the film actually sort of gave her a lift within her community.
Awesome. We're getting the poke to wrap up quite soon. So just to finish off, so your organizations, do you see VR in the future of your organizations, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, we're planning to use VR and the VR experience that we've created and to maximise, you know, the opportunities for people to see our film and for people to also, you know, to raise fundraising opportunities for it. I mean, one example of that in the near future is that we'll be showing the VR film this summer at Kew Gardens in London. Kew Gardens are actually one of the partners on the Great Green Wall project, and they select the seeds that are grown along the Great Green Wall. And they also have some incredible conservatories that replicate the environment of being in the Sahel region of Africa on the edge of the Sahara Desert, where many of the plants are actually grown there. So we're having a VR experience in one of the conservatories, which should almost become like a 5D experience, because it'll be the heat and the touch and the smells of the Sahara.
Just really quickly.
Sorry, that's a bit long.
We're gonna have to leave
Okay.
the room. Unfortunately, the venue we're gonna have to wrap up. I'm so sorry to cut you guys off. But what's the password, guys? Beer. That's right. We're all gonna have a drink afterward, have a chat. Thank you so much. Sorry to cut you guys off.
No, that's all right.
So we're gonna hear you wrap up. Thank you again. Thank you, The Watershed. Thank you, VR World Congress. Remember, hashtag VRWC17.